This is our chapter 26 review. We're going to start off with the uses of the genitive. We have a possessive use, quantity use, and description use. Three uses: possession, that is whenever you have ownership. The dog belongs to the girl, so the girl's dog. We use apostrophe s to signify genitive of possession. We can also use it for quantity. Many of the men. We're using quantity, we use the word of. For description, he is a man of great bravery. For description, we also use the word of. The difference is, with possession, I possess something. With quantity, I'm telling you how much of something, whatever that something is in the genitive. And then the description is whatever you're describing, whatever quality that is going to be used in the genitive. When we're talking about cum clause, purpose clause, and indirect questions, they all have subjunctives. Each one of these has a subjunctive. A cum clause, introduced by the word cum, plus a subjunctive, winner it. The ut clause is going to be introduced by ut. That's a purpose clause. He hurried so that he could arrive on time. When I have an indirect question, I'm going to have some verb that is asking or speaking some mental action. I'm going to have a question word, a question, something that introduces a question, and then the subjunctive. So he asked why he had hurried home, why he had ran home. So cum clause, purpose clause, indirect question, just like that. Shouldn't be new to us. We've had these for a couple of weeks. Here's a chart for participles. We have present perfect. We do have a future now. We have active and passive. For our present active, we have ns or ntis. We translate it as ing. You can see the passive of blank. We do not have one of those yet. Perfect active, that's the opponents only, like egressus, locutus, secutus. We translate those as having plus ed, we make them active. Fourth principal part for the perfect passive, that's like a modus, and it's having been plus ed, having been loved. Future, we don't know the future active yet. We've learned the future passive. We're calling it a gerundive. So this gerundive is a future passive participle. It would look like this. Dokens, there's that ns. And that nt. So we have teaching. We don't have a passive for present. For perfect active, we have words like egressus. There's nothing there that signifies that it's a participle. We just have to remember fourth principal part. Doctus, same thing. Nothing signifies that it's a participle. We just have to remember the fourth principal part of dokeo is doctus. We don't know the future active yet. Here's that nd right there to signify the future passive or our gerundive. We translate it as must be. So he or it or she must be taught. Adjective forms, I'm not going to go over. We've done these quite a few times. You have the positive form, comparative form, superlative form. You might look over some of those irregulars, like bonus or magnus. Case recognition, again, we do this all the time. I give you a sheet where you had to do the case, the number, and the gender of whatever word that is. You might peek at your entire noun chart to make sure that you're aware of those endings. Noun adjective agreement, we've done that in the past as well, just making sure that you're aware that it's on there. Make sure it agrees in case, number, and gender. Using Latin cases in context, filling the blank with a word, a Latin word of the appropriate case. On the exam, it's going to look like these five right here. You're going to have a blank sentence, is going to remove a word, and you're going to have to determine what case to use here. In number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I want you to guess, and then I'll explain what each one should be. So go ahead and answer those. Number 1 should be A. It needs to be an adjective that modifies killis. I determined that killis is nominative, it is plural, and it is masculine. My nominative, plural, masculine ending on my chart is, here's my chart, and hey, there's my nominative plural right there. That, guys, what I need to use on the end to make it match up in case, number, and gender. In number 2, I'm going to choose A because it's genitive. I have the words of the hairspix terrify him, so I need the genitive ending. I need to remember that hairspix is third declension, signified here by that is in its second principal part. Also, it's masculine. Since it's third declension, it needs one of these third declension endings. We said it was of. Of is genitive. There's my genitive ending, and that is the ending that goes on hairspix. Number 3, I need a subject because hostum is accusative. I have a prepositional phrase in incoluna tabernae, and then I have comprehenderant. I need a subject. It needs to be plural because of that nt. Miles is singular. I know that because Miles militis is the principal parts. So I choose the ending, the third declension ending that is plural and nominative. Why is it plural? That NT on the verb says I have to have a plural subject. So if I need a plural nominative, here's my third declension endings, plural nominative, plural nominative. That's what I'm trying to get out of that one. The key number 4 is not a case. This is actually to pick which verb I'm using. And I have to recognize that this is a cum clause. And a cum clause takes the subjunctive. A is perfect and indicative. B is pluperfect indicative. The only subjunctive I have, sorry, that was a technical error. The only subjunctive that I have is the adawisset. Cum takes the subjunctive. That's why I choose C. Number 5, once again, I have to decide what I'm looking for. I have bellum, that's an accusative. Watare, an infinitive. Wolt, I'm missing a subject. I need a subject. I need somebody to want to avoid war. So I'm going to choose the nominative civis. The only reason I know that is because civis is third declension. I need a nominative singular. That's that slash mark. The slash mark represents the first part that's given, and that is civis. Here's a cum clause that you can work with. Practice picking out what kind of verb you have, what kind of clause you have, etc. So choose those and see how you do. The answer to all of these is A. Cum clause. So number 1 says what tense is it? Militarum is imperfect tense. I can see that present active infinitive in there. Imperfect tense. Why is it being used? Cum clause. And translation, when I was a soldier in Britain, I often visited the town of Aquasolace. Try another one right here. Militis ad principia convenerat ut agricolam aderent. Answer here, it is imperfect tense. I got that present infinitive and aderent. Present infinitive plus an ending equals imperfect subjunctive. Why is it being used? I got the ut. Ut introduces a purpose clause. Translation, the soldiers met at the headquarters to hear Agricola. The soldiers met at the headquarters so that they might hear Agricola. Any of those would work. Either one would work. Here are a couple that I want you to turn into Latin. These are our obligations, our passive paraphrastic or our derivative of obligation. Make sure that you understand how these should form. So choose each one of those. The answer to number 1 is A, next number 2 is B. The reason is because in Latin I use a dative of agent plus a gerundive, which is the future passive participle. In English, the dative of agent is going to become the subject, and we're going to change that future passive into an active. So I must love her is active. So in order to do that, I have to flip it into Latin. I becomes the dative of agent. That's my subject. English subject becomes a dative of agent. Plus the gerundive. The active verb, which is love, becomes the gerundive, the future passive participle, the gerundive. And that's the amanda est. Same thing down here at the bottom. Sextus is my English subject. I'm going to flip it to a dative of agent, sexto. And then my active verb, which is must flee, needs to become a passive, future passive, which is fugiendum est. Okay, next I have translating the purpose clause. This is a tricky section. You're going to have to be careful. Make sure that you pay attention to the tenses of the subjunctive. Same time and after. Imperfect happens at the same time. Pluperfect happens after. As long as you did the translations that I just showed you well, should be okay here. Translating indirect questions and cum clauses, those shouldn't be too difficult. Tense and mood recognition, make sure that you know what tense you're looking at and whether it's indicative or subjunctive. Translating the gerundive, that's what we just did. Make sure that you're aware that the dative of agent in Latin is the subject in English. The gerundive plus be in Latin becomes the active verb in English. Here, mihi is the dative of agent, so I'll make that the subject I. The gerundive plus be is fugiendum est, that is, must be fled. But I'm going to change it to active. I, the dative of agent, becomes the subject, must flee. That's the active form of fugiendum. Character recognition, Agricola Bulimicus, Caledonia, Cogidubnus, Deva. That's a place. Domitianus, Memor Quintus. What that is? How about Regnensis? That's the Rufus, Salvius, Silanus. Make sure you know who those people are or where the place is. Caledonia and Deva are places. Who said what? It's going to have a section of quotations. Bulimicus, Quintus, Agricola, Rufus, and Salvius all said one thing. What are they? I'm going to go over this right here with you. I gave you a review section. I'll go over who said what and character recognition here in a second. Let's move down here to the cultural aspects. What proves that Agricola actually lived in Britain? Two pieces of archaeology that are in your book. It showed you pictures of them, and the fact that Tacitus wrote a history of them. Who wrote the history about Agricola? Tacitus, and his relationship. He was the son-in-law. Guess what? If your son-in-law writes a history or a biography about you, do you think he's going to leave out some of the nasty details? Probably so. We call that bias. When was Agricola born? 40 AD. What was the status of his family? They were upper class. Where did he go to school? He went to Massilia. That's present-day Marseille. What was his favorite subject? Public speaking and philosophy. When was Agricola first exposed to Britain? 18 years old. In what capacity? He was a tribune in charge of some soldiers. What was the importance of his first visit? It gave him some knowledge of the province, and he uses that later. Finally, in what capacity did he return to Britain? He returned twice. His second trip, he returned as a legatus, that's the general of the troops, and on the third trip, he came as the governor. Cultural terms. A legio is a unit of soldiers, about 5,000 men, it's a legion. Centurio is a leader of a century. Primus pilus is a senior centurion of the legion. The optio is the he assisted the leader of the century, which was the centurio. Signifer is a standard bearer. He's the guy that held the flag up high and ran through the middle of a war and got shot up holding up his flag. Tribunus Laticlavius is a junior officer from a noble class, so high birth. Tribune Angusticlavius is junior officer from a wealthy, middle class, or wealthy middle class family. Praefectus Castrorum is a commander of the camp. Legatus is a commander of the legion. And then Equitus is a lower social class. Originally, they were cavalrymen. Now, they weren't like slaves. They were upper class people. They actually become knights in our British realm. They were the horsemen, the cavalry. Latin words you need to be aware of. Aferos, to go away. Pax is peace. Beneficium is beneficial or kind. Salvus is wicked. Perfidia is treachery. Facinus is wicked deed. Bellum is war. Referos, to return. Benignus is benign or kind. Fides is faithful. English words, more English words. We have delegate. That's to pass authority to someone else. A quota is a maximum number of persons that could be admitted. Referendum is a proposal returned for popular vote, referred back to the public. A tribunal is a seat of justice, usually a group of having power of judging. Ultimatum is a final proposition or demand. If you don't get rid of him, I'm quitting. That would be ultimatum. We have ablation, which is the removal of dead skin. Accuse, that's to charge with an error or offense. Affidavit is a written declaration made under oath. Bellicose is a warlike or quarrelsome, angry person. Provincial is limited in perspective, narrow. Basically, you only have information about your province. Belligerent is aggressively hostile, outspoken. Cull is to pick out from others. So if you cull in your fish, you pick out the ones you want to keep. Docile is easily managed or taught. Falsetto is a artificially high voice, artificial, deceptive. Insanity is craziness. So like you guys. Here we go with the who am I's. I am a liar who said that Cogidumus wanted to take over all of Roman Britain. We know that was Salvius. Number 2, he goes to Caledonia so he can wage war. That's Agricola. He dies. And that's Cogidumus. I am a treacherous harspex who tries to kill Cogidumus. That'd be Mimor. Number 5. I said that Cogidumus did not want to occupy Roman Britain. That was Quintus. This is a place where the Second Legion was in camp. That was Deva. I am a tribune. Quintus knew my father. That's Rufus. For you smarty pants, number 8 should have been a genitive form of Cogidubnus. So the people, we are the people of Cogidubnus. That's the Regnenses. I am the general. I ordered Rufus to interrogate Quintus. That's Agricola. And I am the teacher. That's me. I am the teacher. Turn me into Latin. Hopefully you guys have already completed this. I should have told you that in advance. Hopefully you guys have completed this before you listen to it. It will help you a lot because you'll pick out your mistakes. So here's 1 through 5. The commander of the 2nd Legion must save me. 2, Agricola does not trust slaves. 3, the Caledonians did not know why Agricola was fighting. 4, Salvius did not know why Quintus was helping the king. The king came to the palace to see Quintus. Each one of those is chosen for a specific reason. You need to be aware of what the reason is, as well as how to get there. Here are the first 3. The first one wants to make sure that you understand that you have your dative of the agent, you have a nominative, and then you have your gerundive of obligation. Again, the commander of the 2nd Legion, forgot to put some of that stuff in there. The commander is the one who is doing the action in English, so I want to make him the dative legato. Of the 2nd Legion goes, that's the genitive that goes with legatus. Me is the receiver of the action, so that's why I made it the subject. Sum, I am the subject. Must save, so I make it the gerundive of obligation, nd plus be. The reason that sentence is chosen because it has that passive periphrastic in it. Number 2, Agricola servus non credit. Agricola does not trust slaves. Servus is dative. Credit takes the dative. That's the reason that was chosen. The Caledonians did not know why Agricola was fighting. Caledoni, numquam sciebant cur Romani bellum gerere. The reason this is chosen is because it's an indirect question. You want to make sure that you know to use the imperfect subjunctive with the introductory question word and a verb that has the ability to question. The last 2, Salvius nescit cur Quintus regem. Again, wanted to make sure that you see how to use the introductory question with the subjunctive. The last one is to see if you can use that infinitive phrase, so that you understand that Quintus is the direct object of Videira. Finally, we have who said what. Again, do this before you listen. Make sure that you understand who says what. The first one, number 1, we have, I do not trust this Salvius, for he is a man of little trustworthiness. However, the Emperor Domitian sent him to Britain so that he could look at the kingdom of Cogidubnus and take it over? Really? That was Agricola. I do not understand the Latin language well. That should be bene, not belle. That was Winkins, the slave that was in the army. Number 3 says, although you do not trust Salvius, it is fitting for you to be careful also of Domitian, for Cogidubnus was a friend of Claudius, a friend of Vespasian, not a friend of Domitian. Who says that? That's Rufus. Number 4, Rufus, tell me, where did you live before you began the military? Was your father not named Barbilus? That's, of course, Quintus. Hooray, Agricola! Hooray, Agricola! Those were the soldiers at the beginning of the story. Number 6, what treachery, what insanity, that which you revealed to me, I am scarcely able to understand. Cogidubnus was insane. That would be Agricola. Number 7, that which Salvius said is true. That's Polemicus. And finally, number 8, Quintus Caecilius is a young man of the highest trustworthiness. That is Rufus. He's a friend of my father. Good luck.